across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, it is Petrie here with you on Talk for the next couple of hours, and just to let you know what's coming up at midnight, we have Vincent Moss. He's going to be here in the studio, a former political editor, to go through the newspapers for a Tuesday. Caroline Faraday will be joining us live from LA to go through some of the stories from that side of the world, and Alex Three Lions Irons will be joining us to talk all things sport as well. But before that, of course, it was, and I know we're all really excited about this, the Tory party conference, but looking at it and watching some of the output from it today, I did ask myself the question, and it is a question that many people are asking of themselves as well, and that is, are we watching the slow death of the Tory party? The Conservative Party's conference is underway in Manchester, and today the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride said, or rather shouted quite a lot, that the Tories are the only party that will stand up for fiscal responsibility. The speech, although according to Labour, of course, they left us in a £20 billion black hole, and Liz Truss was there as well at some moment in time, wasn't she? I mean, I know there was COVID, but also the debt rose a lot under the Tories as well. The speech for Mel was poorly attended. There were quite a few empty seats. One of the people speaking from there said, oh, well, we all went out and got drunk last night, so there's a lot of people with hangovers that didn't make it, but they will have watched it on Zoom. Was the answer for that. So what is the future of the Conservative Party? Will they survive as an opposition party with reform rising in the ranks? Will they ever see power again? Or are they becoming the new Lib Dems? Well, joining me to discuss this and some of the pledges that they made is Michael Mosbacher, the associate editor at The Telegraph. Michael, good to see you again. Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you.
It was a bit of an ouch, wasn't it, with Mel Stride? I mean, I'm glad like in the old days of Doctor Who, I had a cushion to hide behind, because some of the pauses that he made for applause didn't happen. It felt like he was preaching to an empty room.
It looked like a two-thirds empty room. Yeah, I mean, it clearly wasn't great visuals for the start of the Tory conference. Starting on a Monday morning, no one turns up. I mean, it clearly doesn't look good with a current poll rank and all of that combined. It wasn't the vibe that.
I think we're having problems with your connection there, Michael. Let's try and get a better connection. If not, we'll go to a phone. Some of the ideals that the Tories have come up with, some of the pledges that they're talking about, which I'll talk about with Michael once we get a better line. They are pledging a £5,000 rebate for young homeowners, and how that would work is on your first job, your first £5,000 worth of stamp duty or national insurance would be saved for you in an account that you choose, and then you can use that after 5 years. You'll be able to use that either as a deposit for a home, or they're not going to prescribe how that money is spent. So that's one thing that they've come up with. Mel Stride was very quick to say that that is the Tory party. It's about home ownership, and young people feel that they are so far away from owning homes that they are losing them as potential voters, of course. The other thing they've come up with is to abolish business rates for high street pubs and shops. That will cost quite a few billions. I think that's around, what is that, 9 billion, along with the rebate for young homeowners. And it's not not good for Kemi Badenoch either, because half of Tory members do not want Kemi Badenoch to lead the party into the next election. Voters feel that Badenoch is not up for the job. And you've also got Robert Jenrick, or Robert Generic as he is known, who has been saying that he'd quite like to have some sort of pact with Reform, whereas Kemi is ruling that out altogether. So a really big division there, and we know that Jenrick has his eyes set on the top seat as well. Well, just to, while we're sorting out Michael, let's have a listen to the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, who spoke today about what Britain needs to do now.
Needs deep change. But I reject the politics that everything must go, that everything must be torn down, that everything is broken. But if we leave it to Labour or Reform, Britain will be divided. Only the Conservatives can bring this country back together. This is a battle we must win. By combining secure borders with a shared culture, strong values, and the confidence of a great nation, we can win the debate and win the next election.
So there you go. Kemi there saying that they can win the debate and they can win the next election. Well, I think he's back with us now. Michael Mosbacher, Associate Editor at The Telegraph. Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Oh, that's better. Right. Yeah, I mean, talk me through. I've just been talking there while we were reconnecting with you about Kemi, that 50% of Tory members polled do not want her there as leader for the next election. Can she survive a really sort of lukewarm conference, 50% of them saying they don't even want her?
I think the problem she's got is that she's coming up for the first anniversary of winning the leadership, and that she's safe for the first year. But after that, the whole old Tory story of letters going in comes up again. If enough letters go in, there will be no confidence vote. If you talk to Tory MPs, I mean, that certainly seems to be in the offing. And because the party's now only 120 MPs, they only need about 18 letters to for that whole process to begin. So it's certainly a risky point for her.
But I mean, have the Tories learnt nothing, is my question to that, if they're planning on another leader? I mean, we've been through it, haven't we, with them? Seemingly it felt like every 5 minutes, and it will feel like another 5 minutes, and that will give Reform and Labour something to say. Look, see, they can't even pick a leader they like, and they can't be trusted with anything.
I mean, you're right. I mean, it does look as if they haven't learnt anything. I suppose they'd say that they didn't expect their polls to tank. I mean, we've got one of the most unpopular governments after 1 year Britain's ever had, for a government to fall in popularity so rapidly. Compare that to Blair's big majority. And they're thinking that the Tories haven't recovered when they should have recovered. All the running's been done by Reform. So people who are of that mindset might think, what have they got to lose? If they're going to stick with the current leadership, aren't they going down the tubes anyway?
Looking at Reform and seeing what's happened to Lib Dems. I mean, although they've got a decent number of MPs now, but you know, being pushed really to the sidelines, they're not taken terribly seriously. It feels like Reform now are the opposition party that Labour has got to beat, not the Tories. Are the Tories going the same way? Could we see the Tories really die out, and what do they have to do in order for us to take them seriously again?
That's obviously a possible narrative. Clearly, Reform are doing all the running. Reform are way ahead at the moment. But remember, I mean, we've been here before in 1981 when the SDP, a very different party, was riding over 50% in the polls. It's too early to write the Tories off. The next election is 3 or 4 years off from now. A lot can happen in that time. Reform's got one big weakness, which is however much tries to do otherwise, it's still a one-person party, isn't it? It's still all the popularity is Nigel Farage. Everyone identifies it with Nigel Farage. They've got to dramatically widen their base to be realistic. If something goes wrong with Nigel Farage, if whatever happens, he gets bored, a scandal erupts, he's accused of whatever, his reputation is badly tarnished, Reform is in big trouble. They've got no one who could stand up to the plate. I mean, Richard Tice the deputy leader doesn't have anything like the popularity of Farage. So that's Reform's weakness. It's a long time off. At the moment, it looks like Reform is going to be the challenge to Labour. It's all going Reform's way. But the election is still quite a few years off. But you're right, the Tories at the moment are in a position no one would want to be in. It's extraordinary. They've got their worst ever results and they've just gone downhill since.
Yeah, I mean, it really is extraordinary to watch, actually, because we've always been that two-party state, haven't we, really? I mean, the Lib Dems a little bit in the corner, but now it just feels like the Tories are at their weakest that I've ever seen them.
Definitely. I mean, it's other than this moment of the SDP in 1981, there hasn't been a moment like that since for 100 years of one of the major parties collapsing quite to the extent the Tories have fallen there. And the oddity is the Tories have collapsed at the same point that Labour's falling in support. So it's a strange political situation. But I think it's too early to write them off, but basically because of the Reform's weaknesses. Farage hasn't managed to build a team. He's clearly got a bad track record of working with other people, building coalitions, building up other people in the party. And if he doesn't manage to do that, it could all still go wrong. I mean, they don't have to be a credible party of government. They need to have a broad team, and that's just not in place.
I mean, looking at the next election, as you say, it is. A day is a long time in politics, let alone a few years. And with Nigel Farage, there is a threat to him that he could peak too early, or that he's only ever going to get the 30% of people that really want a reform government. There are still many people in this country that will never forgive Nigel Farage for Brexit, for example, and so that they won't be voting for reform. But if we start to see it, and it'll be coalition, I imagine. In the next election, I can't see an outright winner at this stage.
I think you're probably right there.
Yeah, I don't see an outright winner at this stage. There is an idea of some sort of pact between the Tories and Reform. How dangerous a path is that for the Tories to start sweet talking? I mean, Jenrick wants it to start sweetening up to Nigel Farage and to Reform.
To be honest, I think a pact could be very difficult to negotiate. Why? Because you've got Reform, which is leading in the polls massively, twice the support in the polls, but then you've got 5 MPs. The Tories have got 120 MPs. They've got a history of being in government more than any party throughout the 20th century. Lots of success. Reform's the upstart. So it'll be difficult to negotiate because Farage will obviously want the bulk of seats, be the leading party. But are the Tories yet in the mindset that they'd allow the party with a tiny number of MPs compared to them to be leading that alliance? So they'd be incredibly difficult talks, I reckon.
And as for the other side, what kind of coalition are we? So we're just seeing that the scraps being mopped up potentially by Labour. So you've got the Greens, you might have the Lib Dems, you might have anybody else that has a seat or two forming that coalition on that side.
Basically, if you've got an election where there's no clear winner, it all depends on the balances. Reform's only possible coalition partners or confidence supply partners might be more likely you have a minority Reform government backed by the Tories, are the Conservatives and the Unionists in Northern Ireland. Labour would tell all the other parties the choice, they're probably in a coalition with the Lib Dems and tell the other parties the choice is between us and Nigel Farage, and think that would be enough to back Labour. So Labour will mop up all the other parties.
Wow.
And Reform's only possible alliance is the Tories and the Democratic Unionists.
I mean, it's definitely going to be messy. I think anybody who's looked at politics for the last sort of 10, 20, 30 years can see that is the outcome. But let's have a look specifically at what the Tories are sort of going on now. I mean, Kemi said that she wouldn't start talking policies at this stage. It feels like she's had to in order to chase off some of Reform. But are they going for the right thing? I mean, Mel Stride talking about we're the only party of fiscal responsibility. I mean, we do have memories, right? We do remember stuff.
And the Tories have got a problem. Clearly, the major issue which is exercising Reform voters is immigration. If the Tories speak too much on immigration, they won't have any credibility, because obviously this huge increase in immigration happened under the Tories. The Boris wave, channel crossings, they all exploded under the Tories. So talking about immigration won't help the Tories at the moment, because people will then think, oh, I like what the Tories are saying, but Reform's saying it even stronger, so let's back Reform. So they've got to go on other issues. They've got to show they've changed their ways on the economy. I mean, Labour's making a hash of the economy, hash of tax increases. So that obviously gives them a way in. The net zero thing, even though the Tories supported it so strongly, it's not associated with the Tories. It's much more associated with Ed Miliband, with Labour, with sort of Guardian to left. So they probably do have an inroads there. They probably do have an inroads on economic management, just because Labour's making such a mess of things with tax increases. Immigration is probably an issue they should best leave alone, because it just reminds them of the past failings.
But that, it seems, is the number one issue that is driving people to reform, right? Is the immigration, and the very simple language that Farage has always been very good at, in saying, look, we will fix this, and this is how we're going to fix it. I mean, a lot of the things that he's suggesting, first of all, are illegal. They will never get through. But that doesn't actually matter at this stage, does it?
I think you're right. It's the mood music. It doesn't matter. It's the protest. Where the Tories' real chance comes is in a few years' time, when people are thinking, do I really want Nigel Farage as PM? Does he have the team? Is he going to achieve anything? But you're not there yet. At the moment, if you go to the polls, you might as well say, I'm going to vote Reform, because what's the alternative? I mean, the Tories haven't moved yet, so it's an easy win at the moment to say that. But will it swing back to some extent? We'll see. But as I said, Farage's big problem is to build up that credibility, that he's a credible Prime Minister, that they've got a credible team for government, that he could actually that his government wouldn't end up in chaos. We've seen Liz Truss with her 45 days or whatever it was. Will Farage be more convincing of the potential Prime Minister?
But the thing is that as time goes on as well, and we know that a lot of, I'm trying to put this delicately, a lot of MPs, a lot of people in politics are perhaps not there because of their heartfelt belief in a certain party, and that many of them will jump a sinking ship and go to one that they think is going to float. And that certainly seems to be happening with the Tories going towards reform. So is there a tipping point at which reform gets enough Tories to jump into reform that they then become a more credible party because of that?
I mean, if they got major defections, if they got prominent Tories moving over to reform, that means sitting MPs, not retired people, and not MPs who the public haven't heard of. That obviously would change things. I suspect the big problem that Nigel's had, I suspect Reform would have had more defections if Nigel Farage didn't have this reputation for being bad with working with other people. And that reputation goes back a long way. If you remember way back in the early 2000s, you had Robert Kilroy-Silk, who joined from the TV presenter, who then he fell out with. Then you had Douglas Carswell, the Tory MP, defecting, who he fell out with. Then they've been obviously more recently, some of the new Rupert Lowe he's fallen out with. But I mean, he's had a whole history of MPs who've been allied with him, joined him, who he then hasn't been able to work with. He's got to get over that reputation. He's got to convince high-profile, prominent politicians. He's got to convince ex-Tory cabinet ministers, I'm a man you can work with. I'm not someone who's going to fall out with everyone or get worried about my position if people of the calibre of, let's say, David Frost or Ciola Braverman joined Reform. That's his real task.
What about the likes of Rees-Mogg he could? I mean, I don't think there's been any suggestion that he would. I often have had flights of fancy that Boris Johnson might go across if he sees that as a winning party.
I think of the two, Jacob seems very loyal to the Tory party, but I mean, he's obviously very keen on a deal. I mean, he obviously doesn't see there's an insurmountable divide between the Tories and Reform. He's very much one of the advocates you were talking about, the parties having an actual deal of equals. As for Boris Johnson, I suspect that Reform would have problems with Boris because of the huge increase in immigration. If on the one hand your rhetoric is it all went wrong under the Tories and it's the Boris wave, if you then allow Boris into the party, it doesn't really work, does it? So I'm not convinced that Boris will ever happen.
Yeah, except that he's probably the only one that could replace Nigel.
That's true. That's
I mean,
true.
this is just my like, you know, fantasy football. This is my fantasy politics. I'm just trying to place people that actually.
Yeah. The problem there is an ideological one, but clearly Boris is the growing association of Boris with mass immigration.
Yeah, true.
And Reform's appeal is opposition to mass immigration.
What do we think that Kemi? I mean, this we had a little taster of her speeches today. I thought she was very demure. She was very quiet. It was not shouty like Mel. What can we expect for her proper speech, do you think? What do we think she's going to do? Is she going to start giving more policy, showing a little bit more ankle?
I suspect, yeah, she's given more policy. The initial idea was she'd give all the policies very slowly. She's now come out with a fair number of policies, scrapping net zero, leaving HMR, leaving the European Court, the ECHR. All of that stuff is already a big announcement. She'd be mad if she hadn't held something back for the speech. So there'll probably be another big announcement in the speech. And those policies are beginning to be formulated. What's quite interesting is that the ECHR stuff, the European Court of Human Rights, the Tories have it's been a huge issue for the Tories for a long time. And no Tories have dared to say, let's leave the ECHR, because loads of Tory MPs have said in the past they'd go ballistic over it, they'd leave the party, they'd rebel. None of that's happened, and she's announced it. That can be you can have two interpretations of that. One interpretation is the Tories are so unpopular, they don't want to rock the boat. They think if there's a row now, we might totally finish with the party, so let's keep quiet. The other interpretation, which I've heard from some people I've spoken to, is Kemi's not going to be there for very long, so there's no point of making a fuss now. Since she's going to go anyway, these policies won't last. So it's difficult to know what it is, but it's the combination of those two.
Yeah, not a good combination, whichever way you look at it, is it? But what about, will it be generic, do you think? Is Mr. Generic, will he take over?
There's an oddity there. I mean, Generic is obviously up there at the front runner. The problem is the more people defect to Reform, the less likely he's going to be the next leader. As people on the right of the party leave, if MPs on the right of the party leave to Reform, his vote base falls. So is it going to be Generic? It could be Cleverly.
Yeah.
Penny Mordaunt is interested, but Penny Mordaunt is an MP. So, and there's those safe Tory by-elections coming up in the current polling. So there's no real route for Penny Mordaunt. So I'd say it's Generic, Cleverly are the options.
Yeah.
Really.
Interesting, they were the two that sort of backed out earlier, wasn't it? Because I think they saw that it was a poison chalice at this stage. He didn't want to didn't want to be the leader this time, but next time.
Exactly. But I mean, clearly, people always say, why would someone want to be the leader of the Tory party? Politicians always want to be leader of the party. They always want a chance to be Prime Minister. So there'll be plenty of people who'll be trying to go for the position.
Yeah, and I think because they want the position, they should immediately be ruled out, in my view. It's fantastic to talk to you again. Thank you. I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much indeed. Michael Mosbacher there, Associate Editor at The Telegraph. Right, quick break. Back in a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you, and I found a little story that I wanted to share with you I think it was in the Express today, and it just made me realise how different the children of today are compared to us in our age group. Traditional childhood disciplines such as writing thank you notes. Do you remember having to do those? See, the young people in the gallery, no, didn't have to do. Did you have to do that? You did, oh good. Yeah, hated it, absolutely hated it. Oh, do I have to? But we had to write our thank you notes, we had to write those out. And clearing your plate. Now, I wasn't allowed to leave the table until my plate was clear. My mother was the worst cook in the world. If you ever watched the programme Butterflies, you just peer at the plate and go, what's that? That's the kind of cook she was. The food was absolutely gipping. And so, if we left any on the plate, we had that served to us for the next meal. So, it was disgusting. And even her Brussels sprouts, they were frozen in the middle and soggy on the outside. I don't even know how you do that. I don't even know how you do that. Anyway, these things dying out because parenting has become much more relaxed. Generation X and millennial mums and dads are being much more relaxed. Over half of today's parents with young children say they prioritise emotional awareness and connection. I think the only connection I had with my mother was when she used to slap me around with a tea towel. 45% employ gentle parenting. This is why kids today can't do anything. Gentle parenting. I mean, I don't advocate smacking or punching, but gentle parenting. We used to be chucked out in the morning and said, don't come back until it's dusk. I mean, that was it. We used to run feral, and we're all tough for it. We're all tough. Modern parents are increasingly protective, with only 8% embracing latchkey parenting. We used to have to break in through the windows. My sister is a lot younger than me. We used to push her when my mother wasn't home. We used to push her through one of the small windows that was left open and drop her into the other side. She could barely reach the catch on the door to let us in the front door, but that's what we used to do. I promise you that's true. You can ask her. So latchkey parenting, when kids are alone at home after school before parents return from work, just 15% will let them cycle to school unattended. What is wrong with parents? And 13% are happy for them to play outside alone. This is according to a survey of 1,000 parents with children under the age of 10. You need to toughen them up. I mean, again, when I was a kid, if we were crying for any reason, if you fell over, it was, well, if you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about, which never seemed to make any sense. But that's how you parent. That's how you parent tough kids. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you, and joining me now to discuss the week's news of sports news is Alex Three Lines Irons, Talk Sport presenter and producer. Hello.
Hello. It's been a little while.
It has been a while. It's good to see you.
And you.
We start with some really sad news, though, and I've got a clip here, Alex, of former England rugby union captain and World Cup winner Lewis Moody, MBE, who is talking here about his motor neurone disease diagnosis. Let's just have a quick listen.
I was diagnosed with motor neurons disease, and I think it's safe to say it came as a fairly sizable shock to all of us, and we were rightly quite emotional about it. But it's just so strange because I feel like nothing's wrong. You know, I don't feel ill, I don't feel unwell. But yeah, so a strange position to be in. But we processed lots of emotions over the last couple of weeks. It's never me that I feel sad for. It's the sort of sadness around having to tell my mum, having to tell the boys. I mean, you know, two brilliant boys, and that was pretty heartbreaking, wasn't it? But
yeah, I mean, absolutely devastating, Alex, especially after we've just lost Rob Burrows, haven't we, to that particularly nasty disease.
Yeah, Rob Burrow and Doddy Weir as well, who passed away a couple of years ago from the same condition, motor neuron disease, which for anyone that doesn't know, it's a muscle wasting condition. As you said, he was a part of that 2003 Rugby World Cup winning side. He lifted multiple English and European titles with Leicester. And he's essentially said that there's something about looking into the future, so looking at the future in the face and not wanting to really process that at the moment, as we saw in that clip as well, that, you know, it's more... He feels sorry for his family members and not necessarily for him, which is I think a rather tough way of looking at it. I think a lot of people would have been, why me? Why have I got to deal with this? Whereas he's looking at it from his family's perspective.
I mean, it's just so sad because, you know, like I said, Rob Burrow brought motor neurone disease really into the public eye, and you say Roddy Weir as well, but you know, for me it's Rob Burrow, and it is such a devastating disease that not many people really knew about or knew what it could mean. But of course, Lewis Moody will have watched Rob go through this and be very clear as to what this means for him and his family.
Yeah, of course. It was very, very public with Rob Burrow, with the help of Kevin Sinfield, a former player with Rob at Leeds Rhinos, both rugby league legends in their own right. And I think Lewis will look at what's happened with Rob, and I think he might take a bit of, not a bit of pride, I think in regards to looking at what is going to happen in the future potentially with him. It will be scary, but he'll know that he is around a lot of people who love him, his family members, ex-players, ex-teammates, even players that he played against, not just for Leicester but for England as well. So the rugby union community is going to come together around Lewis Moody, just like the rugby league community did with Rob Burrow not that long ago.
No, exactly. And there will be other people, of course, in this country who've equally had such a devastating diagnosis as well. But I was reading in the papers the other day that they are really throwing a lot of research at this disease, and there is some hope. There is actually some hope at the moment. But my heart goes out to him, it really does. It's just such a shocker when you see such a young, fit guy and you know, was obviously fit his whole life playing professional sports, and you know, for that to happen is just devastating. Yeah,
he's got two young kids as well. His 17-year-old son, Dylan, is an England and Southampton youth goalkeeper. So that runs in the family, and as you said, my heart goes out to them as well.
Yeah, it really, really does. Heartbreaking news. What about Arsenal's season? Is that looking like it might be a bit heartbreaking?
No, if anything, the complete opposite, as Arsenal are now sitting at the top of the Premier League table, only by a point, mind you, but they beat West Ham United 2-0 in rather fine fashion. We're in what is Arteta's 300th game in charge of the Gunners, whereas Liverpool needed a win to leapfrog back over them into the top place in the Premier League. They were played against Chelsea in the later kickoff in the Premier League and fell to a 2-1 win, a late win for Chelsea, with a goal from Esteval Willian to secure all 3 points at the bridge for the Blues. But it's been coming, it feels like it's been a long time coming for Liverpool. They've relied on a lot of late goals to really kind of get them over the line. Although before this point, they were unbeaten in all of their Premier League games and in their Champions League games as well. But it feels like they've been on thin ice. They've not quite been as cohesive as they were last season, where they really won the Premier League at a canter. And even though towards the end of the season they did fall off a little bit, but they'd already won the league by that point. So I think a lot of people swept that under the carpet and just went, do you know what? They've got the league in the bag already. If anything, they're allowed to take the foot off the gas. And in that, maybe they haven't really put their foot down heavy enough on the gas to kind of keep them going for this season. Of course, Arne Slot is rebuilding his side. He spent a lot of money on players like Alexander Isak and Florian Wirtz as well. They spent around about £300 million. Wow. Just to rebuild this side, and it will take a bit of time for that to click. Isak isn't 100% fit. Of course, he was on strike really at his end of his time at Newcastle. So Liverpool potentially rebuilding just a little bit, but Chelsea really were able to put their foot on the throats of Liverpool, and for Arsenal's benefit, they now sit at the top of the table. But we've seen a lot of clubs go second. We saw Bournemouth do it on Friday night when they beat my side Fulham, which is hard for me to say, but they did. They did it quite convincingly, winning 3-1 on a blustery night on the south coast. Crystal Palace looked like they were going to do the same after they were ahead against Everton, and a late winner for Everton from everybody's favourite calves, Jack Grealish, secured the 3 points for Everton, who haven't lost in their new stadium either. So it's looking like it could be a very, very interesting season in all parts of the table. The bottom of the table looks pretty interesting. Wolves still haven't picked up a win. You've got Nottingham Forest, which we will talk about in a little while. They've got a brand new manager who hasn't won a game yet since coming in a couple of weeks ago. And the new clubs that have come up from the Championship are actually putting up a good fight, and maybe none of them will go down this year.
Well, let's have a look at Rangers getting through managers almost as quickly as France is getting through prime ministers. I mean, what's going on there?
And me through hot dinners. Well, Rangers haven't been doing that well this season, and because of that, and following their 1-1 draw with Falkirk on Sunday, that has led to the sacking of former Southampton manager Russell Martin. This extends Rangers' that draw extended their new club record of 24 successive away matches in all competitions without a clean sheet. A run that had stood since January of 1897 was surpassed in Thursday's 2-1 Europa League defeat to Sturm Graz of Austria. He only oversaw one clean sheet in the league during his time, and that came against rivals Celtic. Of course, they're not having a fantastic season either, because neither of the two sides that normally would occupy top spots in Scotland aren't doing that. Celtic sit in second, Rangers sit in 8th, and Hearts are currently top of the table in Scotland. But since the turn of the year, Rangers have conceded 61 goals in 45 games in all competitions, an average of 1.35 per game, their highest in a single year since 1961.
Ooh,
and under Russell Martin, they lost 6 of their 17 matches under him this season. That's 35.2% that he'd won, winning just he won just 29.4% of his games in charge of Rangers. That's the lowest percentage of any Rangers manager in charge for more than 10 games. Michael Beale, their former manager, left with a 72% win rate. So Russell Martin in charge for 123 days. That is the shortest spell of any permanent Rangers manager, even shorter than Pedro Cecina's calamitous spell a couple of years ago. So it's been a turbulent time up in Scotland for Rangers, and Celtic haven't been that great either. It took them a very, very late win against Motherwell, I believe, to keep them second and within 2 points of Hearts. If they had lost that like they were 1-0 down for most of that game, Hearts would be sitting, or they would be sitting, 5 points clear at the Scottish Premiership. And if I was a Hearts fan, that would have made me very, very happy. But even so, I'm pretty sure that Hearts fans are happy regardless.
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose the buck stops with the manager, right?
Yes, exactly.
And they take the big money, so they have to take the blame.
Yeah, so there's talk of potentially, so Steven Gerrard had a good run at Rangers. He stopped Celtic essentially winning 10 titles in a row. There's talk of him potentially coming back to Rangers, and I think Rangers fans would be pretty happy with that appointment.
Talk to me about Lee Leopards making a complaint.
Yeah, this is a weird one. So Lee Leopards owner Derek Beaumont has confirmed the club have made an official complaint to the Rugby Football League, or the RFL for short, over the build-up and stewarding in their Super League playoff semi-final against Wigan on Friday night. The fixture took place with heightened security after the previous day's terror attack in Manchester, and there was also controversy over the ticket allocation and in poor weather conditions at the Brick Community Stadium. The controversy beforehand, I think, started on Wednesday, when Derek Beaumont essentially said that he felt that Wigan hadn't allocated Lee Leopards enough tickets for their fans at the game on Friday night, and essentially just went, if this isn't rectified, we're not going to turn up. But both sides were still saying, we're still preparing to play the game on Friday, but whether it's going to happen, we don't know. And of course, it did happen. In an open letter to fans issued on Monday, Beaumont has doubled down on pre-match criticism about ticket allocation, calling the treatment of Leopards fans despicable. Unfortunately, I have had many letters and messages, some from significant kit sponsors, containing footage of the disposable treatment bestowed upon thousands of our fans in our semi-final. That's what Beaumont said in the letter. People were queuing up in poor weather conditions whilst they were physically searched, something that wasn't consistent in other areas of the ground and wasn't in operation at Old Trafford the following day, he said, referencing Saturday's Manchester United v Sunderland fixture. During the build-up of the semi-final itself, Wigan won 18 points to 6. That was also complicated by Lee suggesting they might boycott the match in protest of ticket allocation. They were only offered 4,800 tickets. I think they had a few more than that in the end. But Wigan are through to the semi-final to play Hull KR. They beat St Helens on Saturday to secure their place in the Super League Grand Final that takes place at Old Trafford this coming weekend. And we had the RFL Championship Final on Sunday, which saw Toulouse Olympique of the south of France beat York City Knights. But does that mean we're going to see either of them get promoted? Who knows? Because the IMG ruling in Rugby League is a mess, as far as I'm concerned. And we may see teams that didn't do very well, including the team that I support, London Broncos, potentially get into Super League, even though their performances on the pitch would have had them near the bottom of the table fighting for survival in that division. But next season we could see them playing in the top division. So it feels like anything that does happen on the pitch doesn't really make any sense and doesn't really feel like it counts. But that's Rugby League in a nutshell.
Yeah, it certainly is. In a nutshell, thank you very much indeed. I'll see you soon. Alex, 3 line signs there, TalkSport presenter and producer. Quick break, and then we're heading off to LA.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Quick reminder that coming up at the top of the hour, we have Vincent Moss, a former political editor, here in the studio going through the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. But first of all, we're heading off to LA to the absolutely delicious Caroline Faraday, award-winning entertainment journalist. Hello, how are you?
Oh, absolutely delicious.
You
I'll
are.
go with that. I don't know if I can live up to it,
Yeah, you
but
can.
I've never been called delicious
Have you
before.
not? Well, that is a crime in itself. that
I've been called a lot of things, Petrie. And delicious was never one of
Well,
them.
there you go. You have now. Take it,
Thank
keep
you.
it.
I will take it. Thank you very much.
Now, someone else who was delicious, especially with scandals and sex and bonk-busting books, is Dame Jilly Cooper, and a tragedy that she's died at the age of 88. It seems after some kind of fall, is what we're being told.
Yeah, really, really sad. And because, oh my goodness, I don't think that my childhood would have been the same without seeing a copy of Jilly Cooper on my mum's bedside table, the saucy bean.
Yeah.
That's growing up in the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really
and then
was.
Suddenly realising when you're a bit older what your mum was reading.
I know.
Oh my, what a romp that was. And recently, of course, she had her work. The Rutshire Chronicles, the Rivals and the Riders and everything made into TV shows, which I have to say I have enjoyed so much. So fun. But she just is this wonderful, I just think as Brits, with like Carry On movies or Dame Jilly Cooper, there's this wonderful kind of relationship that we have with sex, where we're like, oh gosh, Julio, well, here comes the riding crop, whoop whoop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she really kind of
Oh, she really did. I mean,
all of that.
It was her genre, wasn't it? Really, that was just her. And they tried to make Riders into a TV show years ago, but it didn't really work. But Rivals has I mean, I loved it because of all the 80s references, all the shoulder pads and the hair and all of that, and the music is fabulous in Rivals. And of course there is going to be another one, and I can see now all of her books being turned into television, can't you?
Yeah, and I'm glad that she lived to see it be a success on the television.
Yeah.
Because I think, at the time it was sort of almost looked down on as, these trashy novels, and that now they've become like a time capsule for the 80s.
Completely.
And all of this kind of like fun and this wealthy horse-loving set. And of course, the dashing Rupert in Rivals, who was the sort of, naughtiest of all the characters in some ways, the dastardly womanizer, is supposed to be based on Camilla's ex-husband. So this kind of goes all to the core of everything here, that it was supposed to be what was he, Parker Bowles?
Yeah. Well, they were great friends, weren't they, Camilla and Jilly Cooper?
Yes.
In fact, the Queen said that she was a long-term friend, so that does tie into him being, Parker Bowles. She said that she saw her only a few weeks ago, and I would love to go for a gin and tonic with the Queen. I think she'd be a right laugh. And can you imagine her?
No, it's a Dubonnet.
A Dubonnet. But can you imagine her and Jilly Cooper together? I bet they were so naughty.
I bet they were. I bet they were a right pair.
Yeah. And just to eavesdrop on that conversation would have just been amazing. But listen,
because they've sort of got the same hair and the same kind of look.
Yeah.
And definitely that kind of same vibe, and definitely all part of that kind of
horsey set. Yeah. See, I didn't realise until today that Jilly Cooper, or Dame Jilly Cooper, wrote a comedy. And it was way before my time, your time, but with Joanna Lumley, who was one of the characters in it, about posh girls renting a flat together.
Oh, magnificent.
I would love to see that now. I bet that was brilliant.
I'm sure that wonderful as her, 11 million selling books, that she sold and all of that, as fun as they were and as romptastic, I'm sure that a conversation in private with all of the people that this was based on would be far more entertaining than anything she could have put to paper. But I'm sure if you know who those characters are, and I'm sure they were based on...
Oh, definitely. They always say, write what you know. Don't they?
That is, yeah, I bet she was a right old... Anyway, she was a lot of fun and she was a national treasure. And
she was.
It says her children said that her unexpected death came as a complete shock. And they said that they are so proud of everything she achieved in her life and can't begin to imagine life without her infectious smile and laughter all around us. And the Queen, yes, did say she was so saddened to learn of Dame Gilly's death. So... a lot of warmth for her. But I mean, if you have not watched The Rivals, it really is, just lock yourself in a room over the weekend and just enjoy, the shoulder pads, the music, the ridiculousness of it all.
It's fabulous. It really is a romp. Isn't it? I mean, that's the best way of putting it. In the great traditions of like you said,
Danny
the carry-ons.
Dyer's in it. And
Danny Dyer's
David
great
Tennant's
in it. Yeah.
I honestly, Danny Dyer is a revelation in that, and he really is fantastic. David Tennant is dastardly and awful in it. Who else is it? Oh, guys, it's really got a fantastic cast.
Oh, a brilliant cast. It's definitely worth watching, even if you're not a Jilly Cooper fan. Even if you just for that reflection of the 80s, it's absolutely perfection. Whoever did the styling and the makeup and the hair and everything, they should be winning awards.
It's the escapism that we need right now, I think. Rivals, because you put the TV on, you can't watch the news, it's too depressing, isn't it? But if you need a little escapism, The Rivals, which I think here I'm in LA, so it's Disney Plus and Hulu here, but I think it's on Disney Plus as well in the UK. And we're all talking to Disney again since the Jimmy Kimmel thing. So
since he's back,
it's fine. Yeah,
it's fine. You can watch it now, but it's definitely worth looking at. Another drama that is playing out: Keith and Nicole. What's the latest?
I didn't know you were on first name terms. How adorable.
We're very close. We're like that.
Yeah, that sounds it. Yeah. So Nicole Kidman, Keith Urban, you may know her from such hits as her first marriage to Tom Cruise. But they have reportedly... Now, I always thought they were quite a solid couple, both Australian, been together for some time, got 2 daughters together. And then suddenly the news came out last week that Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban had split up and that she had then filed for divorce. And there's so much speculation about what happened in their marriage. There is some speculation linking him with various women who he was on tour with. There is speculation about whether she was away too much and whether or not the intimacy went out of their marriage and what on earth went on. I'm sure we'll never know for sure, but she was out and about, as everybody seems to have been, at Paris Fashion Week. And she took, of course, who I think are the best dates to take on anyway, your daughter. She took her daughters to Paris Fashion Week, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret. I do love that she's gone for Margaret there as a middle name. That's really very traditional, isn't it?
That's my middle name.
For a showbiz couple, you expect something really out there. Margaret is a very solid middle name to her.
Yeah, my middle name.
You can speak from experience. You're a solid Margaret.
I'm a solid Margaret. My mother's best friend was called.
But then Petrie is more of an unusual name.
I know. Go figure. They were all over the shop.
Just in case.
They were all over the place, Caroline. They didn't know what they were doing.
Parents for you. Now that we are parents, it's more understandable, isn't it?
Oh, just very quickly, because I think we've only got about a minute and a half. But Bad Bunny is causing real problems at the moment, especially since nobody seems to realise that Puerto Rico is American over in America. They seem to all be furious. In fact, Donald Trump said he'd spoken to the president of Puerto Rico, which is him.
Which is him.
Yeah.
But I saw Donald Trump at a press conference recently where an Australian journalist asked him a question. He said, "I'm going to report you to your Prime Minister." Okay.
Okay, all right then.
Off you go, be my guest. Can you imagine if you did that to me? Then I'm going to report you to the Prime Minister. I'll be like, don't worry, there'll be a different one along.
Any minute now, it's fine, just don't worry about it.
Don't worry, do what you do, go for your life. Anyway, the NFL, you know, the halftime show is like a big deal. So he's taken personal exception to Bad Bunny, who is Puerto Rican, obviously sings a lot of his songs in Spanish, being booked as the halftime show, and they're all, you know, out there saying, well, we're going to have ICE there to do some big raids, you know, basically just come and whatever.
Nice. I mean,
it's
nice.
super nice. But listen, one positive, there was an NFL show, not just a show, apparently football either side of the show. Really only care about the show. In London over the weekend at the Spurs ground, because they do a game now in the UK, because they want American football to take off more in the UK. But anyway, the wonderful, wondrous, amazing Ray played the halftime show. And if you haven't seen it, take a minute to watch it on YouTube. It's so good.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning to you. It is Petrie here with you, and with me, I'm delighted to say, is Vincent Moss, who's the former political editor. Before we get into the papers, you spent probably a few days, weeks, years, months at party conferences in your time. What do you make of the Tories conference? It looks so empty.
It is. The numbers are really down. I mean, it looks from some of the pictures as though they're massively down. I mean, even for some of the keynote speakers like Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor, his hall was really empty. The Conservatives did try and claim there were some people waiting outside. Even so, the numbers are really down, not just in the speeches, in the halls, the exhibitors. I think the levels of people are really disillusioned. The party got a drubbing at the last election. It's a long, slow haul back to something like getting elected again, and there's this huge pressure internally where a lot of their vote is shifting to reform, and there are a couple of polls out saying that even the majority of the members don't think Kemi Badenoch can remain as leader, possibly more than half, and a lot of them seem to prefer Robert Jenrick, challenger. And the other big issue they've got is so many of them want a pact with Nigel Farage's reform, because they probably see that as the only way they can see off a potential other pact on the left, if you like, between Labour and the Lib Dems and potentially the Greens.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, I mean, you've got the Reform will be asking what's in it for them. While they're riding so high, they don't think that at this stage they need the Tories. They might closer to an election get cold feet, but for right now it's like, well, what's in it for us?
They don't need to do a deal now.
No.
But if the polls narrow, and tradition shows they tend to narrow for various reasons, then that might be the time a deal needs to be done. But there are even people, Andrew Rosendale, the Essex MP, within the Conservative Party that are looking at their own prospects. Essex could go completely reform at the next election, and people like Andrew Rosendale saying, look, we've got to do a deal. Now, as you say, if you're Nigel Farage, you don't need to do that deal now, but if the polls narrow, as it tends to be likely, that might be the point at which a deal could be done, and it might be the only thing that saves the Conservative Party and gives them a chance of power. But the trouble is with pacts, we saw this with the Liberal Democrats in 2010, if you're the junior partner in a coalition, you don't tend to fare that well, and the voters don't take kindly to it.
No, you become the lightning rod for everything that goes wrong. What is interesting to me, though, particularly with this conference, is with Labour doing so badly, we've never had such an unpopular government this quickly into their tenure. With Labour doing so badly, you would have thought that would be driving more businesses and more people to the Tory party conference, and having, you know, lots of businesses there, this is what they all do, isn't it? They all head off to these places, these exhibitors. But they're not even buying that. I mean, that's what, to me, is devastating for the Tories, because they should be riding much higher, given that Labour have made such a hash of everything.
Well, that's right, and one of the most unpopular things Labour have done, beyond the winter fuel payments fiasco, was the rise in national insurance contributions that employers have
for
to
businesses,
pay. So you'd think that employers would be flocking to the Conservatives, but I think what they're doing is they're looking at the Conservatives and thinking, not only are you not second, you're third.
Yeah.
So if they're looking anywhere, they may be dipping their toe in the water and looking at reform potentially, because businesses are sensible by definition and looking at where the winners are, and they're looking at the Conservative Party at the moment and they don't see a party of winners. Again, could change if the polls narrow, but right now 3 or 4 years away from an election, point one, and point two, the Conservatives are trailing a poor third, which doesn't make them top of your list of things to do when you're looking at how to spend your business money and whether you spend a few £1,000s going to a Conservative Party conference. Yeah,
it's just you know, looking at it today when I was sat at home watching this unravel, I just literally thought, are we seeing the death of the Tories? Now this is centuries old political party, or to use Donald Trump's terms, 3,000 years old. No, I mean, this is an old political party. This has been around since politics has been around. And yet they look so weak, and they're so insignificant.
Very much so. I mean, at the moment, people are voting with their feet by not going.
Yeah.
And there are two issues. One is I highlighted the sort of how far they are from power, but two, the conference is being led by Kemi Badenoch, and her role is seen as potentially not being leader in a year's time, let alone in 3 years' time. So why would you invest time and money in going there if A, you're not that impressed with the party and what it's doing at the moment anyway, and B, the leader might not be there. Interestingly, though, they have announced an awful lot of policies, which is unusual this far out for an election. Kemi Badenoch said, I won't be announcing any policies till 2027, I've got to do some thinking. But in fact, there's been policies today about cutting business rates for all businesses to revive the high street. There's been all sorts of talk about potentially stop and search being beefed up to crack down on crime. They've announced quite a few policies. So, but then again, I suspect that's a desperation for the oxygen of publicity, because they know without some policies they were going to get precious little coverage. So they've been forced into announcing some stuff in that kind of quest for relevance, you might say.
Yeah, it is early though, isn't it, to be announcing that. And of course, Kemi's got her big speech coming up. We've had a little taster of it, of her speeches, but she's got a big one coming up, and she's going to have to grab headlines with that. So what's she going to announce there? She's going to have to, and she will be announcing further policies, presumably.
Exactly, and probably, presumably, because it's the #1 issue, more on migration.
Yeah.
They've already announced they'll pull out of the ECHR, and that's a popular move. Polling always shows that goes down rather well. But there'll have to be more of that nature of stuff, because she'll want to be leading the news bulletins, and it's quite a challenging news agenda at the moment. There's a lot going on in the world, and with potentially very damaging local election results coming up in May that could be a disaster both for Labour and the Conservatives, and a surge for reform. She's got to sort of stamp her credentials and make a pretty big speech.
Yeah, because with the local elections, of course, people tend to vote differently as they would in a proper election, big election, a general election, but still it will be a bloody nose for both of them.
Almost certainly. I mean, they tend to vote anti-government for a start. It tends to go against the government, so that's bad news for Labour. But the reform surge is such, I would imagine it'd be very bad news for the Conservative in most seats as well.
Yeah, absolutely will be. Right, let's have a look at the Wall Street Journal. To the other side of the pond, parties dig in, await pain from shutdown. Was another vote attempted to try and give Donald Trump the budget that he needed to see through his big, beautiful bill. But that failed again, both sides blaming the other. Of course, there'll be another week at least, they think, but they'll wait for the pressure from people when they stop getting paid. Presumably the hundreds and thousands of federal workers will not be being paid, and they will have to put pressure on either the Republicans or the Democrats to get this pushed through. Yeah,
crazy deadlock that the Wall Street Journal is continuing to report on. And as you say, federal workers won't get paid, benefits don't get paid. It's not unprecedented. We've seen these shutdowns before. They tend to get resolved, but at the moment there's a stalemate, and as people sort of bills mount up and their paychecks don't come in, the pressure will mount. But it's funny, isn't it? Not just in America, but look at the chaos that's going on in France at the moment, where they can't agree budgets and form a government there. So it seems to be a kind of almost a global thing where it's really difficult to just get basic stuff agreed like budgets. But in America, they have strange situations, don't they?
People are incapable of compromise.
Yeah.
I mean, just even when you're driving your car, nobody's going to compromise and let you through. Nobody can compromise anymore. And this is what the French Prime Minister now, after 27 days, quit. He said that nobody's prepared to compromise. Everybody thinks that they're right, and you can't govern in that way. You just can't. There has to be some give and take, and Trump is saying we're not giving up anything, and you sign this or I'll start sacking more people, and the Democrats are trying to say, well, look, if we do agree to this, you're going to wipe out health insurance for 17 million Americans. So it's hard to see where the compromise is going to come.
But somebody's going to have to give way. Trump's argument is somehow healthcare will be better if we do it my way. Well, that's unlikely, one would imagine. But if there's not a compromise, the people that ultimately suffer are all those workers who are missing out their paychecks, and it's coming up to Christmas and all the rest of it, and they're the ones who suffer while politicians on Capitol Hill just can't agree. And as you say, this thing about not being able to compromise is becoming a massive issue. Things don't get done unless people compromise. Unless you've got an overwhelming majority in whatever election was held, which a lot of people don't these days, you've got to compromise.
Yeah, and this is where we're heading as well.
It is.
With having coalitions and things probably for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
It's going to be such fun. Right, let's move on to the Sun newspaper. Romp in peace, Jilly. I've just been speaking to our reporter in LA about Jilly Cooper. I mean, she was just extraordinary, wasn't she? The queen of the bonkbusters. Long-term pal Camilla, obviously the queen, said a wonderfully witty and compassionate friend. Can you imagine those two together? I was saying that to Caroline. I bet they had such a laugh.
I bet they did, and she was always well connected with the royals and was a legendary figure and sort of brought to a new generation with the kind of TV series Riders, which was hugely popular. I have to say, though, I have not, and I must be in a minority, ever read a Jilly Cooper novel. Have you?
I have to admit to the same.
We're probably in a minority, aren't we?
We're in the minority.
'Cause they
My
have been
mum used to
bestsellers.
read them. My mother used to read them, and they have been bestsellers. But I have never read a Jilly Cooper novel.
I think we're probably missing out.
I know we probably are. I might actually get one.
I think so.
Yeah.
There's often
It'd
a
be worth
surge
it.
when people die, isn't there?
Yeah.
People go and buy the book or buy the records.
She sold 11 million copies
Huge.
in this country alone. So she, and I think I would like them, because I mean, look, it's all so serious at the moment, isn't it? The world, it's also heavy, and all the books on my shelves are, how Russians won this and how the Poles did that. It's all war and stuff and politics. So maybe I need a bit of light
I think so. And a peek behind the curtains of the aristocracy to see what they're doing in their bedrooms. I mean, feels a bit old-fashioned, but in a way, I mean, it's a bit light relief, isn't it? So
one of her greatest lines was apparently inappropriate use of a hay barn.
Yes, yeah.
Which I can,
It's great, isn't
just
it?
imagine. I mean, what a tragedy, but she did have the most fabulous life, and she loved writing, she really, really enjoyed it. I was hearing today as well, and I can't remember which book it was, but she typed everything in those days. It was all paper and typewritten. When my dad wrote books, it was always the same. So you got these big tomes of paper, and she left one on the bus. And it was never returned to her, and she went home and she started writing it again, and she rewrote the whole book.
And she did 5 books in 1 year once,
Yeah,
which
she
is
did.
incredible.
Yeah.
Very
5
prolific.
books, yeah. But there you go. I mean, a wonderful, she's, by all accounts, was just such a wonderful woman. Such a shame that they said it was a shock. Her death was a shock because she took a fall.
Yeah.
And didn't recover, which is a shock.
It is.
But there's a wonderful photograph of her on the front page of The Sun. Right, let's turn now to the Mirror. And they've got some pictures of Jilly Cooper on the top there. Queen of our Bonkbuster dies at 88 years old. Adored Jilly Cooper, the one and only Jilly. And then the Mirror have gone big on the Gaza border. Peace talks begin in Egypt, I believe, but bombs still fall 2 years after the... Of course, today is the 2-year anniversary of that horrendous attack by Hamas, the terror organisation, in murdering those innocent people and kidnapping a load of them as well.
Yeah, and the Mirror, very big picture of the latest sort of devastation of a pretty flattened Gaza, but making the point also, the Mirror, that at least 64 Palestinians died in the last 24 hours or so, which is making the point that as these negotiations, these talks are underway in Egypt, and there's big pressure on Hamas to release the hostages and big pressure on Israel to stop bombing, that the military assault continues to go on even though the peace talks are going on.
Yeah, and that is I thought that Trump had ordered them to stop the bombing, but I just think it's just, look at that devastation.
Yeah.
Just awful. That's the headline, Hope in Hell, and that is a really good headline, and I genuinely hope that they can get those hostages returned and those bodies returned as well, and that some peace can at least begin.
Yeah, and that there's a ceasefire, because of course there's no guarantee that once the hostages are released, although it is part of the Trump plan, that Israel actually stops its military offensive. I mean, it may want to continue.
Hamas has then lost its only bargaining chip.
Yes.
That's it. It's a big deal, for them to hand them over, because that's it. They've got no bargaining, and neither should they have. Right? I mean, they're a terrorist organisation. What they did on October the 7th, we tend to sort of let that slip a bit because of what's happened since. Yeah. But what happened on that day 2 years ago was absolutely beyond disgusting.
Yeah, horrendous.
Horrendous, absolutely horrendous. Right, let's take a quick break, and Vincent and I'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here, and with me Vincent Moss, and Gary, one of my fabulous listeners, has said Joanna Lumley and the Jilly Cooper series, it's awfully bad for your eyes, darling, is what it was called, has been wiped from the BBC. But the first episode is available on YouTube, because I saw today that she'd penned a sitcom, Jilly Cooper, way back in the I think it must have been in the 60s, and Joanna Lumley starred in it. So
fantastic.
Yeah, it's got to be worth looking up on YouTube, hasn't it? For Gary, thank you for that. Yeah, Jilly Cooper, and a tribute, Camilla's tribute to Jilly Cooper was, may her hereafter be filled with impossibly handsome men and devoted dogs.
It's nice,
I think that's
isn't it?
all I want, really.
Yeah, well, she had despite all that sort of fame and the rest of it, she sort of lived a very sort of bucolic lifestyle in the Cotswolds, I think, didn't she?
Yeah,
she wasn't sort of living in
No,
London's
she loved
West
walking out
End,
with
was
her
she?
dogs
So,
and, doing all of that. Yeah. Right, this is the Daily Express, and the Tories pledge a blitz on scumbag store thieves. Plan for expanded use of CCTV? Yeah, because that really works. What an absolute joke.
I think the Conservatives at their conference, they're just desperately grasping for policies and an audience, and crime is up there closely, still behind the cost of living and immigration, but a key public concern, and they're saying that they'll get tougher on criminals by using greater use of facial recognition, CCTV, and a lot of the technology.
Yeah, that really doesn't work when they're wearing masks.
It doesn't, and a lot of them are wearing masks.
A lot of them are wearing masks.
So, and again, you know, they had 14 years to deal with this. So I think people are a little bit weary and still haven't forgiven the Conservative Party for 14 years when they didn't make as much progress as they could have done, and they're now talking about all these things that they would do if they're in government.
And that is the problem, isn't it? Our memories are not that short, right? So we remember that none of this was dealt with. We remember that the surge, the Boris wave and the surge in migration. We remember what happened to the economy. Okay, there was COVID, and that created a massive amount of debt. But you know, to have them say so soon, we can fix this, it's like, well, you didn't fix anything.
Exactly, and it wasn't as though they had 5 years or 4 years or one term.
Yeah.
They did have effectively 14 years, albeit some of that was in coalition, but they were the lead partner in that coalition. So to start talking about, after just a year of this current government, all the things they could have, should have, would have been doing,
and we're
is
the
a bit
party of
rich.
fiscal responsibility after what happened with Liz Truss.
Exactly.
Ridiculous. But also, this is just more spying on honest people and not catching dishonest people. That's just another layer of that nonsense.
Yep.
It's just absolutely ridiculous. Drives me nuts. The Times. Everything you know about abs is wrong, Vince.
Well, I don't know much about abs. They've got a nice picture there of a man's chest with lots of very sculpted abs. But given I don't know anything about them, I'm sure there's a lot to learn from the Times.
Learn from the Times. Right, so the Tories promised stop and search blitz in crime hotspots. I mean, they always told us they were the party to be strong against crime, didn't they? But I don't think that the numbers bear that out.
No, they don't. The Times story is quite controversial because it's saying that police for the first time would be allowed to search people without having grounds for suspicion. Now, that does sound potentially alarming because at least under what became noted as the hated sus laws, people had to suspect you were guilty of something and tell you what it was. But these new powers would be used, according to the Times, in the areas with the highest rates of robbery, theft, burglary and violence, drug dealing and antisocial behaviour, most of which are in the West End.
It's going to become a racist paradise, isn't it?
Well, that's the trouble.
That is it. It's the whole profiling thing again.
Yeah, and a lot of it would be taking place in London because they are the highest crime areas in, as you'd imagine, Oxford Street, Mayfair and those sort of areas. But the idea that police could stop you without any reasonable grounds for suspicion will, I would imagine, be A, pretty unenforceable, and B, very unpopular.
Very unpopular. I mean, you know, it literally will. And look, we've got enough problems with the Met Police, actually. And it seems like every week there's another scandal uncovered about Met Police saying this or doing that, or, you know, their WhatsApp groups, or being misogynistic or racist. We don't trust them as it is.
Well, that's the thing. And how could you allow them to do this when you don't trust them? And the BBC Panorama story then covered the terrible behaviour of some of the alleged terrible behaviour of some of the police at Charing Cross Police Station in central London would have been a huge story and dominated the papers probably for days if it were not for the terrible events that happened at the synagogue in Manchester. So
and that story still bears being put on the front pages in my view. Shy Britons drink to dance before we hit fearless 50s. Dancing is described as the hidden language of the soul. For many Britons, it remains a very well hidden indeed. Nearly 1 in 3 of us admit we need alcohol to take to the dance floor, rising to nearly 2 in 5 of those aged 18 to 24. And once we're in our 50s, though, we don't care.
that's right. I think
we no longer care.
it feels as though it's true that, yes, well, once you're in the age of the dad dancing and mum dancing era, you don't need alcohol to drink, but I'm sure most people, unless they're very talented, do need a bit of Dutch courage to get on the dance floor. What's interesting about it is it's sort of study, if you like, that's been put together by breast cancer, because the serious point it's making behind it is the link between breast cancer potentially and alcohol, and about 8% of breast cancer cases were linked to alcohol. So behind the sort of fun point of we need a drink to dance, it's sort of making the point that about the connection potentially in a small, well, not small, 8% of cases between breast cancer and alcohol.
Yeah, it's a funny thing what happened to me during my 50s, you know, when I hit my 50s, was just like, I just don't care anymore about anything, about anyone. Anyone can judge me, I don't care.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? There comes, I think when you're most sensitive, you're in your 20s and 30s.
Oh, awful.
And it improves
when you
in your 40s.
should be at your least.
Yes, exactly. Enjoying life. And then by the time you get to 50s, and that's you've got everybody else looking at you going, look at them, they just don't care. And that's right.
Like, we
don't.
literally don't care anymore. You can say what you like about me. You can, honestly, I don't care. And I used to. I mean, some of the messages, you know, being a broadcaster all of my life, most of my life, would really hurt my feelings, and now I'm like, can't be bothered, don't care. The Times, PM's anger at student protests on October the 7th. I mean, look, protests that are, he's saying that un-British, marking the anniversary of October the 7th. The thing is, in a free society, things are allowed to be said and done. And there's quite a lot of them I don't agree with. There's quite a lot I find distasteful, but...
That's right. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't agree with these universities. Apparently, according to the Times, about more than a dozen universities will be holding protests to mark the October 7th anniversary, and there's some events including honouring our martyrs. And Keir Starmer's written in the Times saying that those that taking part are showing a lack of respect, and I think many people would agree with that, but do we want to live in a country where these protests are stopped? The answer's hopefully not.
Yeah, but I mean, no. As much as it is distasteful, and describing anybody that took part in October 7th as a martyr is absolutely disgusting beyond words, but that is the price of a free country, and I wouldn't want to not pay it. The Guardian. Labour's new visa rules put NHS at risk.
Yes, the Royal College of Nursing are behind this story, saying that the clampdown which Labour sort of, if you like, followed reform on in terms of promising to clamp down on visas amid claims lots have been abused by people bringing in family members and that sort of thing. But Professor Nicola Ranger from the RCN has said health and care services would cease to function without migrant nursing staff. And that while other countries offer immediate paths to settlement for nurses, the UK is going the opposite direction. We all know, anybody that's been into a hospital or any kind of care environment, that they would crumble without the overseas workers that are in there. So it is managing that balance between trying to crack down, as many people want, on migration, but making sure that health and care services don't fall apart, which they would if you stop people coming in to work in them.
Yeah, and I mean, even just raising the level at which you are, you know, allowed to come and work in this country is going to stop a lot of people coming. We've got the care workers who don't get paid very much money from overseas, and they've been already banned from bringing their family members over, which has seen a dramatic drop in the numbers of care workers. And look, if we don't have the people in this country to do those necessary jobs, what do we do?
That's right. It's about getting the balance right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some of the student visas have been abused for a long time, and some of the students are bringing in family members. Now, I can see no reasonable reason why, as a student, you would need to bring your family members in.
Or would want to.
No. If, for example, however, you're a top neurosurgeon and you want to bring your wife and family here, and it's such a valuable skill and you are saving lives, I think there's an argument for that. A lot of cases there isn't. So it's getting the balance right between clamping down on abuses of visas but making sure that workers that we need, or we can't fill the gap. It's all very well saying train up British workers, but if they're not available, they don't want to do it, then you've got to find a way around it.
At least a decade's lag in terms of getting those people through and trained and experienced.
Yeah, absolutely.
To the level that we need them. Just before we go to the break, tax authorities examine finances of Farage ally. Finances of one of Nigel Farage's key confidants is being examined by the UK's tax and revenue authorities.
Yeah, it's really interesting. As reform gets closer and sense power, there is a bit more scrutiny, certainly from the left of centre papers like The Guardian. And this is a chap called George Cottrell, who's very much part of Nigel Farage's inner circle, built up a lot of businesses, has a lot of overseas interests, based in Montenegro a lot of the time, where I think he's a tax resident. But papers like The Guardian are starting to look at his income, how he's made it, starting to ask questions, and The Guardian alleges that the HMRC, the tax people, are looking at his finances, not least because he's been a donor to reform. So see how it plays out. But I mean, this should be happening really, because if reform, as all the polls are telling us, are going to form the next government, then the media need to start scrutinising their top personnel, their policies, and what it means for the rest of us in terms of taxes and things.
But if they're a limited company, aren't they?
I think they are at the moment,
reform. I wonder if the donations are different to a limited
I think they're still bound by electoral commission rules. So for certain purposes, you have to be a UK resident. There are ways around that. I think if you pay for business travel or foreign travel, sometimes your company can be overseas. And interestingly, I think one of the allegations is George Cottrell's mother has given huge donations to reform. So long as these donations are within the rules, all fine.
And been declared.
Exactly.
And all of that.
But there is increasing scrutiny about reform and where its funds are coming from. And so there should be, as with all the parties, really.
Posh George Cottrell. Posh George.
This is his nickname, isn't it? It's not a bad nickname.
Not a bad nickname. You could do a lot worse. Right, let's take a quick break. Vincent and I'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. This is Talk, and it's Petrie, and with me is former political editor Vincent Moss, and we are going through the newspapers for Tuesday. Right, the Daily Telegraph again. I think all the papers have gone big with Dame Gilly Cooper. She's certainly been reflected on all of them. And MI5 kept in the dark in China spy trial fiasco. This hasn't really hit me, this story. It's been one of those things that I just sort of, because there's other things to read about and other things to look at. But the Home Office and Security Services left blindsided by a collapse of an espionage case. Yeah,
it's interesting, but a complex story, but which is basically the Telegraph saying that the MI5 and the Home Office were left in the dark about the collapse of this espionage case. It involves a chap called Christopher Cash, who worked for Tory MPs, and he was charged with passing intelligence to Beijing after being arrested in March 2023, but the case was dropped last month. And the Telegraph is saying that the government wants to know why the government refused to declare China an enemy in court, and saying that before the case was dropped, Jonathan Powell, Sir Keir Starmer's national advisor, is said to have told a top-secret briefing that the government would not declare China an enemy in court. So it's sort of continuing to rumble on, and the allegation is that the government should have been doing more to push this case through, and
well,
it
yes,
didn't.
because you can't, if you don't declare China as an enemy, you can't then accuse somebody of passing secrets to an enemy. Because if they're not an enemy, it's fine, right?
Exactly. But of course, the bigger picture being, do we want to annoy the Chinese when we're such big trading partners? We import an awful lot of stuff from China, and they may have taken the view that in the sort of geopolitics of it all, this is one person, and is it worth starting a diplomatic war with China about it? Might be the sort of cynical way of looking at it, but the Telegraph isn't letting it go, and is saying that potentially, I think, that questions will be raised in the House of Commons, and they will keep the pressure up to sort of get action on it. But it feels as though the government is sort of really saying we don't want to do much to do with this.
No, but in the meantime, you've got that kind of malign presence of Chinese spies. You've got, people who've run here from Hong Kong, being chased by China, being threatened by China. They've come here for sanctuary. We've always capitulated to China because of they're an economic powerhouse. It seems that the more money that you've got, the worse you can behave, and nobody cares.
Yeah, and there's also a separate fuss about plans to build a big new Chinese embassy
embassy
down in near the Tower of London, in the former Royal Mint area, and that's still rumbling on as well. So yeah, it's that kind of problem that I'm sure there are lots of Chinese spies operating in the UK and across Europe, really, and this chap was just one of them, but it was super sensitive because he worked for Conservative MPs in the House of Commons.
Oh, well, we know that there's been quite a few of those working very close to power, still are. This is slightly worrying. I'll sack activist judges to tackle pro-migrant bias. That's from Robert Jenrick, who isn't even the leader of the Tory party, so he's got no power to do absolutely flap all, and let alone Prime Minister. So, but he's saying he pledges to sack activist judges. I find that slightly worrying, the talk of sacking judges that don't agree with you.
That's right. There's supposed to be a separation between government and judiciary, but it has to be seen through the prism of the fact that Kemi Badenoch's not doing very well, and Robert Jenrick is very much the heir apparent, and the choice of Conservative grassroots to replace her should a vacancy arise, which it may well do after disastrous local elections next May, if not sooner. And Robert Jenrick's very much put his eye on what he calls activist judges. He's the Shadow Justice Secretary, according to the Telegraph, has compiled a list of more than 30 sitting judges, full and part-time, who he says have previously volunteered help or provided free legal services for open border organisations. So he's blaming the judges, basically, for the migrant problem, as he would see it. And, of course, the judges make judgments according to the law, and in a small number of cases they will grant appeals, not very many cases, but they're very much being painted by Robert Jenrick as the villains of the piece, even though the Conservatives have said they'll already leave the European Convention on Human Rights. Doesn't seem enough for Robert Jenrick, who wants to sort of turning his guns, as it were, on the judges, and he will announce apparently Conservatives will introduce reforms to enable the automatic sacking of activist judges. Now that's a very dangerous precedent.
That's a very dangerous, but it is out of the MAGA handbook.
It is, very much so.
Exactly the same language that Donald Trump uses against anybody that disagrees with him. They're activist.
If I don't like the judges, I'll sack them.
Activist judges, politicians, governor, they're activists. They're the enemy within. I don't like it because, look, there's undoubtedly, if there is pro-migrant bias, then their legal framework has to be looked at, doesn't it? And if a judge is not judging according to the law, then they should be sacked, right? Yeah. But if they're judging according to the law, but you just don't like the law, you can't just sack somebody for that. That always is being pro-migrant. Yeah. Well, just... That's the law.
Yeah, and there should be a framework, and there is, that judges are dealt with through their own various bodies, not just summarily sacked by politicians, which is what
somebody
seems
will
to be
examine
proposing.
their cases and say, well, look, we find that you have been operating outside of the law, therefore you're fired.
Yes.
Not by politicians.
Not by Mr. Robert Jenrick.
No.
But then he's a very ambitious man and he wants to lead his party.
Yep, exactly that. Oh, and just this little nib at the bottom here. Lord Nelson has been branded queer by a leading museum. The naval hero was killed during his victory at the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. Curators of the Walker Art Gallery have described him as a queer, despite his marriage and numerous affairs with women. He didn't say "kiss me, Hardy." He said "kismet, Hardy."
Well, that's what it all rests on, isn't it, really, I suppose? Because the Telegraph does suggest he did say "kiss me, Hardy," but I guess that's what they're basing this theory on.
But, I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, he was a well-known womanizer.
He was.
And just because he said the words he muttered as he was dying, "Kiss me, Hardy," or "Kismet, Hardy."
Yeah, as in fate.
As in fate. Yeah. I think that's more likely.
But it gets them a headline, and it does say, I mean, the Telegraph refers to them as a leading museum. I may be being terribly unfair, but I don't know about the Walker Art Gallery, so
I've never heard of it.
Need to brush up on my museums.
I keep meaning to go to the Petrie Museum, because there is a Petrie Museum in Bloomsbury. So he was a great Egyptologist called Petrie, Lord Petrie.
I think I've heard of that. It's a very small museum with lots of strange, quirky artwork that's well worth a visit by all accounts.
But I reckon that I should get in there for free.
Try it.
There's what can go wrong?
They're bound to say yes.
The Petrie Museum, what would you do if you walked in and you saw a picture of me? So, great.
Might be one there.
Yeah. I remember my son going to the British Army Museum on a school trip many years ago, and it was at the time when I was in, there was a life-size cutout of me in a military uniform as a war reporter, and my son came back from the museum livid, furious with me. I was wearing a helmet. It wasn't I didn't put myself in there. I was put in there. But he was absolutely embarrassed beyond belief. I think he was probably about 9 or 10 years old.
So it was embarrassment rather than the fact you were in a...
He was so embarrassed. Mum, how could you do that to me? I said, I didn't do anything. It wasn't me. I didn't put myself in there. I think it's gone by now. I would quite like to own that life-size cutout there. Quite an laugh. Right, the Financial Times. Let's have a look at that. 3 strikes. Latest French Premier quits. This is really difficult for Macron, who is looking closer to having to throw in the towel, isn't he?
I think so. I mean, it seems that there's a huge impasse and that they need to hold fresh elections. But of course, Macron doesn't want that because he'll get potentially left-leaning people who might kick out his pension reforms. But I have to say, I'm not surprised the French want to cling on their pension reforms. It sounds like he got a pretty good deal. Did they retire at 60 or 62
60,
or something?
Isn't it? 60?
Quite young.
Looking at my French person. Is it 60 retirement? And I remember about a year ago, if not less than that, they were talking about increasing that by 6 months or something, and the whole country.
That's it. I think they want to move it to 64 or something from memory,
it was a
and
tiny...
even that's still well below us at 67.
So it was 62 and it's going up to 64.
Right.
What's ours?
67 going up to 68 probably, I think.
Great. Yeah, the French are not going to put up with that.
No, they're not. So, but huge pressure on Macron, isn't there? So he's going to have to do
I mean, a
something.
huge pressure, because, you know, his heart must have dropped when this guy walks in and says, by the way, I resign after 27 days.
Is that the shortest ever? I think
It's
it
the
must
shortest
be.
ever, yeah, it is. And Britain becomes the Chinese electric car maker BYD's largest overseas market. That's interesting because, of course, Tesla fell in popularity because of, you know, various things to do with their boss. So it looks like BYD is a good...
Yeah.
It's cheaper.
I was going to say, I'm not an expert on them, but they are cheaper and they are popular, and you are seeing more of them around.
Yeah. And also, I believe that a lot of the extras on Tesla, you have to pay for yearly. It's like you still have to pay for Tesla upgrades, and because it's all computerized and stuff like that. Whereas with BYD, you pay for it and it's yours.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things. I'm not an expert on it, but I sort of looked at that when the whole Tesla Elon Musk thing was kicking off, it looks like the Chinese electric car makers stole a lot of Tesla's ideas.
Yep.
Or borrowed them.
Yeah.
And improve them.
Yeah, and you see more and more of the charging points now, so that issue seems to be diminishing as a reason people didn't want to get them.
Well, they're just too expensive for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to get any kind of electric vehicle. Right, let's take a quick break. Hello, good morning. It is Talk and it's Petrie here with you, and with me Vincent Moss, a former political editor, going through the newspapers. I've just got a couple of messages here. This is from Carol. It says, I hope you and the little monkeys are doing well. They are phenomenally well, except for Humphrey, who's just a bit naughty. But he's great. Has the phone-in been cancelled permanently? It's sort of, we haven't got enough hours now, being down to 2 hours, so it's not, nothing's ever permanent in this game, right? We'll just give it a bit of time, but for now it's not happening. And then Carol says, lung cancer not going too good at the moment, but I'm fighting on. It's like gaining 3 and then losing 2. Kindest wishes. Well, you know I send you all my love with that, Carol, and I'm always here. You can always phone whenever you want to, and I will take your call. So don't worry about there being no phone in. I'll always talk to you. And Teresa says, is 11 till 1 your new time lot now? And is there no more phone-ins at 12 anymore? I really enjoyed the phone-ins. I no longer listen to Talk Radio between 10 until 11. Still a great show from Bridget. Bridget, thank you very much indeed. But yeah, I'm just, you know, this is just what's happening at the moment. I can't speak for anything else. We just have to ride with it for now. But I'm glad you're still enjoying the programme and still joining me as well, because I'd be really sad if you all left me and departed. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get back to the papers and Vincent. The biggest phone gang smashed.
Yeah, Daily Mail is saying the police have holding the kingpins who sent thousands of stolen mobiles to Hong Kong, saying a gang responsible for exporting almost half of the mobile phones stolen on Britain's streets has been smashed. Scotland Yard has hailed it as the biggest counter phone theft operation in the world. 300 officers swooping on 28 homes across London and getting loads of phones back, saying that 2 days previously 2 Afghan gang leaders thought to be responsible for shipping 40,000 stolen mobiles to China and Hong Kong were dragged from their cars and arrested in North London. So the police were under huge pressure to do something about this epidemic of phone theft. Not just in London,
one every 30 seconds, wasn't it, or something being stolen?
And all those videos, no, exactly, people in London don't. I mean, and visitors still do, tourists still do, but anybody in London really doesn't get their phone out because they're so wary of it.
No, I can always tell when people come up from the tube lines that they're first to get their phones out, and I think, oh, you're not a Londoner and that is going to not go well for you.
They check their messages, and most people now who live in the city don't do it. It's not just London, it happens in other big cities too, but it's really prevalent in London, and most people who live here, me included, don't know any, probably know half a dozen people, if not more, that have had their phones snatched. And the new phones, they're £1,000, the new iPhones and other phones. So it's hugely lucrative. Some responsibility, great the police are doing this, also responsibility on the phone providers to beef up the technology so they can't be unlocked and used abroad, which has been happening, particularly in North Africa and other places. So I think the police have upped their game, and it's now up to the mobile phone providers and others to make the phones a bit more, make them at least not usable again.
I completely agree with you. I mean, I've put on double or triple layers onto my phone, but I just saw it being mentioned in a newspaper or something about this thing you can do to go into settings and things and switch something off, which means that they can't then see the screen, or they can't. So and of course you've got tracking on your phone as well, but what's the point in that when you just see it flying off to Hong Kong?
No, exactly. You just see how far it's gone. It's having a better time than you. It's on holiday somewhere nice.
Exactly.
So, but it is good that there are sort of it's a good result there for
that is. I mean, 300 officers swooping on 28 homes across London simultaneously at the dead of night to arrest groups of pickpockets. I mean, it was just a total profession, wasn't it? Just a total business. So that is really, really good that they've done that. The Daily Star, news with a wink, again going with Madeleine McCann.
Yes, well, it's always been a popular story for newspapers to lead with because it tends to boost circulation, and the Star's claiming that AI can solve the mystery of what happened to Madeleine McCann, and this is sourced to the TV investigator Mark Williams-Thomas, who believes artificial intelligence can crack the Madeleine McCann case after 18 years. Well, AI is very good at lots of things, but I suspect that might be even beyond the reach of AI.
It feels like an excuse to put Maddie on the front page, because that doesn't feel like a I mean, they've even put it inverted commas, right? And when a headline is in inverted commas, it means it's not true. It's just a statement.
Exactly. I'm sure if there was lots of evidence and that it needed analysing, AI could do it very well. But the whole point about the Madeleine McCann case is there is no significant evidence of what happened to her.
And that's always been the problem, isn't it? Whether that was down to the Portuguese police really dropping the ball on this, or whether that is because there really isn't any evidence to find. But after all these years, nearly 20 years now, there's still nothing significant to prove either way what happened to this little girl.
No, incredibly sad and almost incredible that nobody ever really saw anything tangible, and it just remains one of those great true crime sad cases that people become obsessed with. I mean, many years ago it was called Whatever Happened to Lord Lucan, which occasionally papers still write about, but it's such a long time ago that many of them don't anymore. But Madeleine McCann, I fear they'll keep writing about for years to come.
And this must be absolutely devastating for her parents. I mean, I don't think anything can be more devastating than the fact that they lost her, or that she was taken, or whatever's happened to her. But to have this sort of rehash, I mean,
and the children and their other children.
They've got twin siblings, haven't they? I mean, I suppose it could go either way. Maybe they want it to be in the papers all the time because it gives them hope that somebody will say something one day. But for me, it would be just, all this carrot dangling and all of these theories and stuff. It'd just be heartbreaking. I wouldn't want to see it.
I think so, yes. I think it would be very hard.
Very strange. And there's another, I wish we had the inside of this paper, Monster Hunters United, sorry.
It's a great picture of, looks like an ape, but it also potentially could be a man in an ape suit. It's not clear what it is. And it just says, Monster Hunters United. Turn to page 7, but alas, we won't know what's going on.
We don't have it, sadly, which is really, really heartbreaking. And then the final paper I think we've got is the Metro. Time to call your lawyer. Again, that's an odd headline. But it's to do with this phone gang. Yeah,
it's the same story as the Mail, but written a slightly different way. But fascinating, saying that these kingpins held in these raids that we talked about just now smuggled up to 40% of all handsets snatched in London and got sent to China, which is a huge amount, isn't it? So if they've cracked that many cases, potentially, then it really is a big victory. They're talking about finding 1,000 iPhones in a box marked batteries that was going to be shipped to Hong Kong. So just shows the industrial scale of it. While it just looks as though it's often two young teenagers on electric bikes whizzing round, it's a huge operation that's coordinated by these Mr. Biggs and these organised crime gangs. It isn't just random kids snatching them. They're snatching them to order. Doubt it's getting paid a little bit for each one they snatch, but it's a proper organised thing. Yeah,
they're probably getting paid 50 quid a phone, aren't they, or something like that. And they're just. I wonder if people will get their phones back.
Who knows? Yeah, I mean, hopefully.
They haven't already been wiped.
Yeah, if they haven't already been broken into bits.
Extraordinary. Well, good. I mean, the only thing is that where a vacuum is created in criminality, somebody else will fill it.
Yeah, they'll find something else.
Still take care of your mobile phones. Did you find anything that you wanted to?
Yep, there's a very funny story in The Sun here. I like it not least for the headlines. Drug snort OAPs up by a third. It's 1 foot in the rave. 90-year-olds have been taken to hospital after doing coke. It says the number of OAPs in The Sun admitted to hospital for snorting cocaine has soared by a third in 2 years, with several in their 90s. But apparently many are using the drug because they're treating ailments they can't get fixed on the NHS.
What? So who would think of cocaine as doing...
Well, exactly, but it seems to be for pain relief that some have been some are genuinely addicted to cocaine, but a small number of them have been doing it. These I think, what do they call them? Silver snorters have been doing this because they've got pain issues and they're using cocaine to self-medicate.
But where are they getting it from? I wouldn't even know how to get hold of some cocaine. Maybe I should have read more Must have
No,
been.
exactly. Maybe they're asking their grandkids or something. Maybe it's who knows, but quite unusual, isn't it? 90-year-olds going to hospital after doing cocaine. Pensioners made up 3% of the overall numbers of those treated for the drug, 23,000. But over 65 admissions are a third more than 2023 and 4.5 times higher than a decade or so ago.
Well, it sounds a bit rock and roll, doesn't it?
Well, also, it does make the point, generation gap. Some older people are experimenting because they have more disposable income. So you get retired, you get a bit bored, nothing to do, try something new.
I've always maintained that I'm going to start doing some very naughty things when I'm in my 80s or 90s. There you go. Vincent, thank you very much.